There is a constant noise within us, one that doesn't come from the world outside, but from somewhere deeper, somewhere far more familiar. It's the whisper you hear when you dare to dream, the echo of doubt when you try to stand tall after a fall. That whisper says, "You're not good enough. You'll fail again. Why even try?" These are not the voices of truth. They are the voices of fear, of shame, of all the wounds we've never allowed to heal. These are what I call our inner demons. They don't wear horns or breathe fire. They wear our own face. They sound like our voice. But their purpose is not to help us grow. It's to make us feel small, unworthy, stuck. And yet, for some reason, we argue with them. We sit in quiet corners and plead our case, as though these voices have the power to grant us peace if only they understood our side of the story. We explain, we justify, we try to prove to them that we are, in fact, enough. But here is the truth that most of us learn too late. You cannot reason with the part of you that was never meant to support you. You cannot debate your way into worthiness. Inner demons don't care about your growth. They care about survival, and they survive by keeping you small. Every time you argue with them, you're feeding them. You're giving them a seat at the table of your mind. And slowly, they begin to shape your beliefs, your identity, your choices. They show up as perfectionism, as comparison, as procrastination. They show up as the voice that says, "You're too broken to be loved," or "You'll never make it like the others do." These voices know exactly where your cracks are, and they press against them with surgical precision. The cruel part is, they don't even have to be true to be powerful. They just have to be repeated often enough that you start believing them. The moment you stop and try to convince these demons that they're wrong is the moment you lose a little more of yourself. Not because you're weak, but because your energy, your spirit, your light was never meant to be wasted on shadows. There's a difference between healing and arguing. Healing looks like facing the truth and choosing to release it. Arguing looks like reliving the pain again and again, hoping for a different outcome that never arrives. We must learn the wisdom of silence, not the silence of suppression, but the silence of refusal. The refusal to keep debating our worth, the refusal to keep explaining our scars, the refusal to keep begging for peace from voices that only offer chaos. Because peace does not come when you win an argument with your fear. Peace comes when you choose to stop having the argument at all. You are not broken. You are healing. You are not unworthy. You are learning to love yourself after a long time of being told not to. And you don't need anyone's permission to feel whole, not even your own past. You see, the real transformation begins the moment you stop asking those inner demons to believe in you, and you start believing in yourself, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, in small, gentle ways. In the way you speak to yourself in the mirror, in the way you forgive yourself when you fall short, in the way you choose to show up again and again, even when you don't feel like you're enough. That's when you rise. Not because the demons are gone, but because you stopped inviting them in. You don't overcome fear by proving it wrong. You overcome it by walking forward despite it, and you don't silence doubt by screaming back. You silence it by filling your life with actions that speak louder than any voice in your head ever could. So, stop arguing with demons, not because you've lost the battle, but because you've outgrown the war. Because your energy is sacred, because your peace is precious, because your time here is limited, and it was never meant to be spent convincing shadows of your light. Walk on, let the voices scream, let them echo behind you. You have better things to do. Arguing with your inner demons is like pouring water into a broken cup. No matter how much effort you make, it will never be enough to fill what cannot hold. When you argue with fear, shame, self-doubt, or past regrets, you are unknowingly feeding them, giving them space to grow stronger inside you. These are not voices that want to be persuaded. They are echoes designed to confuse you, to distract you from your truth. And the more time you spend trying to convince them otherwise, the more energy you lose from your journey forward. When you engage with these voices, when you try to explain your pain to them, when you reason with your anxiety, when you negotiate with your fear, you are validating their presence. You are placing them in the center of your consciousness, treating them as if they belong there. But they don't. They were never meant to stay. They're like uninvited guests that overstayed their welcome. And every time you argue with them, you're pulling out a chair, setting the table, and feeding them more of your power. Your light, your worthiness is not up for debate. It never has been. And yet, so many of us live as if we have to prove ourselves every single day, not just to the world, but to the voices within us, the ones that say, "You'll never heal, you're too late, you'll always be this way." These voices are persistent, relentless, and haunting. But here's the truth: they lie. And not just sometimes. They lie every time. Still, we fall into the trap of wanting to win. We think, if I just do more, achieve more, fix myself completely, maybe then these voices will quiet down. But they never do, because these inner demons are not looking to be disproven. They're looking to keep you busy, busy with perfectionism, busy with self-loathing, busy with regret, and the busier you are trying to silence them, the more distracted you are from your purpose. You don't owe your pain a performance. You don't have to prove your healing by constantly defending it. Healing is not loud, it's not a courtroom, it's not a debate, it's quiet, sacred, and internal. It's something you hold gently in your chest and nurture, not something you perform to convince your doubts to go away. It takes immense courage to realize that not every voice in your head deserves an answer. Some voices deserve distance, some deserve silence, and some deserve to be replaced, not with more noise, but with truth. You are not the sum of your fears. You are not the weight of your past, and you are not here to beg for your own belonging. Every time you try to argue with a demon, you're saying, maybe you're right. Even if it's subtle, even if it's unconscious, but the moment you stop arguing, when you decide, I don't have to prove anything to this voice, you reclaim your power. You take your energy back, and in that stillness, something beautiful begins to grow. Confidence doesn't always arrive as a roar. Sometimes it's just the quiet decision to no longer participate in your own suffering. Sometimes it's the moment you hear the voice of fear say, "You can't," and you respond, not with an argument, but with action, because growth is not a debate. Healing is not a courtroom, and your truth is not on trial. Stop arguing with demons. They are not your audience. They are not your mentors. They are not your truth tellers. They are simply old echoes from an outdated version of you, a version that did the best it could with the pain it had. But you've evolved, you've grown, and you don't owe them any more of your time. Let them speak if they must, but don't speak back. Let them knock, but don't answer. Let them scream, but don't stop walking. You were not born to wrestle with your shadows forever. You were born to rise above them, and rising doesn't always mean fighting. It sometimes means letting go, walking away, and deciding that your peace matters more than being right. So take a deep breath, ground yourself in your truth, and remember, the loudest voice is not always the wisest. Often, the wisest voice is the quiet one that says, I don't need to argue, I know who I am, and that knowing, that quiet, unshakable knowing, is the beginning of your freedom. You don't owe your trauma a justification. You don't owe your pain a conversation. You don't need to explain to your past why you deserve peace. But so often we try. We sit in silence, replaying memories, picking apart what happened, what we could have done differently, where we went wrong, as if, somehow, if we just understand enough, the pain will make sense and disappear. But healing doesn't come from dissecting wounds over and over. Healing comes from choosing to stop bleeding. There is a difference between honoring your story and living in it. Honoring your story means recognizing what you've endured, what you've overcome, and allowing yourself to feel it. But living in it, that means letting the pain write your future, guide your decisions, and whisper your worth. And the moment you feel like you must convince your own history that you are worthy of healing, of peace, of joy, that's the moment your healing is no longer yours. It becomes an argument, a debate, a courtroom of guilt and shame, and you become both the judge and the prisoner. You don't owe your trauma a stage. You don't have to bring it everywhere you go like a badge or an apology. Some things that happened to you were never meant to define you. They were simply meant to be survived, and you did. You survived. That in itself is a complete sentence, a full stop. You don't have to follow it with an explanation, a disclaimer, or a justification. It's natural to want to understand our pain, to make sense of the chaos, but not all pain can be explained. Some of it has no neat reason, no moral to the story. Some of it is just heavy, unfair, and heartbreaking. And in those cases, peace doesn't come from finding the why. Peace comes from saying, even without a reason, I choose to move forward. You are not responsible for proving to anyone, especially yourself, that your healing is valid. If you need rest, take it. If you need space, claim it. If you need joy, pursue it. You do not need a permission slip signed by your past to live fully in the present. Letting go does not mean you've forgotten what hurt you. It means you've remembered who you are without the pain. Because deep beneath the hurt, beneath the scars, beneath the noise of memories you wish you could mute, there is a version of you that never stopped hoping, that never stopped wanting light, that never stopped fighting, even in silence. That version of you doesn't need to explain why it deserves peace. It just does, and yes, healing is messy. Some days you'll feel strong and certain, and others you'll question everything. That's okay, but don't confuse those moments of doubt as invitations to re-argue your worth with your wounds. You're not going back there. You're not reopening closed doors to justify your need for sunlight. You are allowed to stop answering questions your pain keeps asking. Why me? What if? Was I enough? These questions are traps dressed as reflection, and every time you try to answer them, you stay stuck in a loop of self, blame, and grief. Healing begins when you start asking new questions. What now? Who am I becoming? How do I love myself through this? You see, the past does not get to hold a vote on your future. It doesn't get a voice in whether or not you smile today. It doesn't get to decide if you are ready for joy, for love, for peace. That decision, that's yours, entirely, completely. You are not here to win a debate with your pain. You are here to build a life in spite of it. To rise, not because the past agrees you deserve it, but because you decided you do, and that decision is more powerful than any argument with your demons ever could be. So breathe. Let go of the explanations. Burn the scripts that say you have to earn your healing by first convincing your broken pieces that they're whole. Just walk forward. With every step, you are rewriting your story, not by erasing what happened, but by refusing to let it tell you who you are anymore. You don't owe your trauma a justification. You owe yourself peace. Inner demons don't feed on truth. They feed on fear, and this is the part so many of us miss. We think that if we just speak facts to them, if we explain logically why we deserve happiness, why we've done enough, why we are good enough, they'll quiet down, but they don't, because these demons are not rational. They are emotional. They are ancient echoes of every unhealed wound, every broken belief we inherited or developed along the way. And they thrive not because they're true, but because we're afraid they might be. Fear is their fuel, not truth, and so, no matter how many times you remind yourself of your accomplishments, no matter how often you recall the love you've given or the strength you've shown, those demons will still whisper that it's not enough. They will distort every truth, twist every fact, and turn even your healing into a battleground. Because that's what fear does. It rewrites reality. You can tell yourself, I've survived so much. Fear will respond, but it still hurt, didn't it? Maybe it was your fault. You can tell yourself, I am worthy of love. Fear will say, but remember the ones who left. Maybe they saw the truth. You can say, I've grown. And fear will grin and say, not enough, not really. These are not voices of insight. They are shadows. They have no interest in your joy, no intention of letting you rest. And yet, we keep inviting them into conversations. We try to defend ourselves against them as though they are judges. But they are not. They are memories, reactions, echoes. They are familiar, yes, but not true. The mistake we make is thinking that healing is about correcting those voices, about proving them wrong. We think that if we achieve enough, love hard enough, or work on ourselves long enough, we'll one day be able to sit down with our demons, present the evidence, and hear them say, you were right, you're whole, we were wrong. But that moment never comes, because fear doesn't work like that. Demons don't respond to truth, they respond to attention. And this is why the most powerful thing you can do is withdraw your attention. Not with anger, not with frustration, but with clarity. You don't have to fight the voices, you simply have to stop feeding them. Every argument, every mental debate, every self-critique is another meal for them, but silence, stillness, peace that starves them. You don't overcome fear by shouting over it. You overcome fear by making it irrelevant, by walking forward anyway, by saying, I hear you, I see you, and I'm not staying here. Because when you realize that your fears are not reflections of reality but relics of your past, you gain the strength to stop negotiating with them. They were born in moments of pain, moments when you were too young to know better, too vulnerable to protect yourself, too alone to push back. And so they took root. They grew in the quiet, and now they pretend to be your voice, but they are not. They are just loud, and loud does not mean right. So stop answering every fearful thought like it deserves a seat at your table. Start asking yourself who you want to be, not who your fears tell you you are. Because every time you listen to fear, you shrink. And every time you choose truth over fear, you expand. This is not about pretending you're not afraid. It's about not letting fear lead the way. It's about recognizing that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the refusal to let fear dictate your decisions. It's the quiet strength that says, I see the storm inside me, but I'm still moving forward. Demons cannot survive in light. And the light is not perfection. It's honesty, it's love, it's action. Every time you treat yourself with kindness, even when you're afraid, you turn on a light. Every time you rest when your inner critic demands productivity, you shine. Every time you speak truth over lies, you heal. So no, truth alone won't silence the demons, but your faith in the truth will. Your choice to keep going, to stop answering the voices of fear, to step into your worth without waiting for permission. Because you were never meant to live in a courtroom of self-doubt. You were meant to live in freedom, and that freedom begins the moment you realize. Fear only grows if you let it speak for too long. Peace is not found in the victory of an argument with your fears. It is found in the decision to stop having the argument altogether. We often believe that peace is something we earn, something that comes after we've conquered every fear, silenced every doubt, and tied every piece of our story into a perfect little bow. But peace is not a reward for performance. It is a choice. It is what happens when you finally decide that your healing, your joy, your presence matter more than the voices that tell you otherwise. We spend so much of our lives in a war within ourselves. We wake up and immediately remember what went wrong yesterday. We look in the mirror and start negotiating our worth. We hear a whisper of a dream inside us and then bury it under the weight of what if I fail. This inner dialogue, this constant tug of war is not peace. It's survival, it's exhaustion dressed up as responsibility, and yet we stay there because it feels familiar, because fighting with our demons gives us a false sense of control. But what if real strength isn't found in the fighting? What if it's found in the letting go? We're taught that to stop fighting means to give up, that silence equals weakness, but there is a different kind of silence. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of power. The kind that says, I no longer need to prove myself to pain. That kind of silence is sacred. That kind of stillness, it's peace. Peace is what you create when you stop negotiating your worth with thoughts that were never meant to serve you. Peace is what blooms when you no longer measure your progress by how quiet the demons are, but by how little attention you give them, because the truth is, those voices may never go away completely. There will always be fear. There will always be doubt, but their presence doesn't have to equal their power. You can learn to hear them and still move forward. You can learn to recognize them and still choose joy. You can feel fear and still be at peace. Because peace isn't the absence of hard things, it's the presence of something deeper. It's the decision to hold yourself gently in the midst of the noise. You don't need to win every internal battle to find peace. You need to step away from the battlefield, to stop proving, to stop explaining, to stop needing the voice inside you to agree with your healing before you allow yourself to be free. Some days that voice will scream, you're not enough, and you will still choose rest. Some days it will whisper, you're falling behind, and you will still choose grace, that is peace, not the silence of the world, but the stillness within you. when you no longer feel the need to answer every thought, to argue every fear, to defend your healing. You step into a new kind of freedom. A quiet kind, a steady kind, and in that freedom, life starts to feel lighter. Not because your story changed, but because the way you carry it did. This kind of peace doesn't arrive in a single moment. It grows with every small choice to honor yourself, with every time you put your hand on your heart and say, I am safe here, with every boundary you set, every breath you take, every time you choose not to perform, not to explain, not to fight, just to be. You have spent enough time in the trenches of your own mind, enough time convincing your pain that you deserve joy. Now is the time to walk away from the argument and into your life, into your present, into your power. You don't need your fears to agree with your healing. You don't need your past to sign off on your future. You don't even need the inner critic to be quiet before you start living your truth. You just need to choose peace anyway, so breathe, pause, rest. Let the voices echo behind you. Let the doubts knock without answering. You are not required to host the war any longer. You are allowed to choose peace, not because the demons are gone, but because you are done debating your worth with them, and that choice, that's what sets you free. You do not have to explain your light to the dark. You do not have to stand in the middle of your healing, holding it up like proof, waiting for the voice of your inner critic to say, okay, now I believe you. That voice, those doubts, those fears, they do not get a vote in who you become. And the longer you wait for them to approve of your growth, the longer you stay stuck trying to convince something that was never meant to understand you. There is a certain kind of power that comes when you finally realize that your light is not up for debate. You didn't earn it by being perfect. You didn't fight for it so someone else could validate it. Your light is your birthright. You've carried it through pain, through silence, through storms no one else could see. You've lit your way out of places that tried to extinguish you, and now here you are, still shining, still becoming that light. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't need applause. It just is. But sometimes in the quiet that old voice still returns. The one that says, who do you think you are to be this joyful, this free, this healed? And when it comes, you might feel the urge to explain, to defend, to make your peace sound palatable, understandable, even deserved. But you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to justify your joy to a voice that only knows how to speak in doubt. That voice has one job, to keep you small, to keep you questioning, to keep you explaining your worth as if it's something that needs to be argued in the first place. But worth is not earned, it's remembered, and the day you stop trying to convince your darkness of your light is the day you step fully into that truth. It is not your job to make your peace acceptable to your past. It is not your duty to make your freedom logical to the part of you that only ever knew how to survive. You are not responsible for making your joy make sense to your pain. The world has told you that you have to earn every inch of light you carry. That you need to struggle, prove, hustle, and break down before you are allowed to rise. But rising is not a privilege that comes after perfection. Rising is a decision, a quiet inner decision to stop waiting for the darkness to clap for you before you let yourself feel the sun. And no, it's not always easy because that voice, the one that questions your light, is persistent. It remembers everything you've done wrong, every failure, every misstep. And it will throw those memories at you, hoping you'll shrink back into the shadows, hoping you'll quiet your joy so the past doesn't feel uncomfortable. But hear me clearly, you do not have to stay loyal to a version of you that was only trying to survive. You get to grow, you get to evolve, you get to outshine the voices that once shaped you. When you stop explaining your light, you start protecting it. You start honoring it. You stop inviting your fears to interpret your joy, and you start trusting the part of you that knew how to heal even when you didn't know what healing looked like. You see, the darkness will never understand the light. That's not its job. The job of the darkness was to shape contrast, to help you recognize just how brightly you can shine. But that's it. That's all. It is not your guide anymore. It is not your mirror. You do not need to keep trying to explain your joy to a version of you that was taught to feel guilty for being happy. You are not obligated to tone yourself down so the past feels less uncomfortable. The truth is, your light may make some parts of you feel unready, unsure, exposed. But that's okay, that's growth. That's you stepping into who you were always meant to be. Not in spite of the dark, but beyond it. So the next time the voice comes, the one that says, "You haven't done enough to be this free," remember this. Your freedom is not a reward for doing. It's a right for being. You are light. You are whole. You are healing, and you don't have to explain any of it. Not to your past, not to your fears, not to the shadows that once held you. Just keep shining, keep becoming. No explanations needed. Letting go is not weakness. It is wisdom. It takes far more strength to walk away from a war within yourself than it does to keep fighting battles that were never meant to be yours. But for so long, we're taught to believe that perseverance means enduring every conflict, answering every voice, confronting every memory. We confuse internal chaos with courage. We think we have to stay strong by holding on to everything that ever hurt us, everything that ever made us doubt our worth. But what if true strength is not in the holding on, but in the release? There comes a time when you must ask yourself, who am I carrying all this pain for? Is it for the people who hurt me, for the moments I can't forget, for the voice inside me that keeps saying, if you just try harder, maybe you'll finally be enough? Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending you were never hurt. It means no longer allowing your pain to own real estate in your present. It means no longer giving your energy to the things that already took so much from you. The truth is, not everything that comes into your life is meant to stay. Some wounds are teachers, but they're not meant to become lifelong companions. Some fears served a purpose once, to keep you safe, to keep you alert. But now they are chains disguised as protection. And yet, we hold on. We tell ourselves we can't move forward until we figure it all out. Until we solve every question, find every answer, and get closure. But here's the reality. Sometimes, peace is what happens when you finally stop asking the questions. Letting go is choosing to no longer seek validation from things that were never capable of giving it. It's the quiet decision to say, I don't need this story to make sense in order to leave it behind. It's the powerful choice to no longer explain your growth to the part of you that only understands grief. Because not every chapter in your life needs to be rewritten. Some just need to be closed. And yes, there will be voices that say, but what if it comes back? What if it hurts again? What if you're wrong? And you'll be tempted to believe them. You'll be tempted to stay, to argue, to delay your own freedom in the name of caution. But at some point, you have to realize that fear will always find a reason to stay. It will always craft another what if. And you can either spend your life building defenses against pain, or you can start building a life beyond it. Letting go does not mean pretending the pain didn't happen. It means honoring that it did, and then choosing to live anyway, to love anyway, to move forward anyway. That is not weakness, that is courage. And letting go is not one big dramatic act. It's not always a single moment of clarity. Sometimes it's dozens of small decisions every day. It's catching a painful thought and saying, I'm not going down that road again. It's choosing rest over rumination. It's choosing presence over projection. It's saying no to people, places, and patterns that feel like home but never felt like peace. It's understanding that your healing is not a courtroom. You are not on trial. You don't have to present your evidence or relive your pain just to be allowed to feel joy. You do not need the approval of your past to begin your future. Letting go is telling your story without needing to stay inside it. And the beauty is, when you start letting go of what no longer serves you, you create space for what does. Space for new thoughts, new hope, new beginnings. Space for softness, for safety, for breath. Space for yourself, the version of you that is not weighed down by everything they once carried. You deserve that space, you deserve that peace, not because you've done something to earn it, but because you've done the hardest thing of all you've kept going. And now it's time to lay down what no longer belongs to you. So let go, not because it didn't matter, but because you do. Love is not selfish, it is survival. In a world that constantly demands our time, our energy, and our approval, learning to love ourselves is an act of rebellion and grace. It is not a destination, but a practice, a daily commitment to choose kindness for yourself, especially when the voices around and within tell you otherwise. Self-love means giving yourself permission to be imperfect, to rest without guilt, and to prioritize your needs without apology. It is not about ego or arrogance. It is about honoring your existence as worthy, valuable, and whole, simply because you are. Many of us carry wounds that whisper we are not enough. These whispers often come from early experiences, harsh words from others, or internalized beliefs shaped by trauma and rejection. They manifest as that inner critic who points out every flaw, magnifies every mistake, and demands perfection as the price for acceptance. But perfection is a mirage, an impossible standard that no one can meet. And when we chase it, we lose sight of our true worth, which is unconditional and inherent. Choosing self-love means stepping off the treadmill of self, judgment and comparison. It means recognizing that your worth is not tied to your productivity, your appearance, or the approval of others. It means learning to treat yourself with the same compassion you would offer a dear friend who is hurting. Imagine how you would speak to someone you love deeply, how you would encourage them, hold space for their struggles, and remind them of their strengths. Now turn that kindness inward, speak gently to yourself, listen patiently, love fiercely. Self-love also requires boundaries. The courage to say no to what drains you, no to relationships that diminish you, and no to expectations that feel unbearable. Boundaries are not walls built out of fear. They are bridges to healthier connections and deeper self-respect. When you protect your energy, you make room for healing, growth, and joy. You teach yourself and others how to treat you with dignity. But self-love is not always easy. It demands confronting the parts of ourselves we have long hidden or rejected, the parts that feel broken, unworthy, or unlovable. It calls us to show up even when we feel scared or uncertain. It asks us to be patient with ourselves during moments of relapse and to celebrate every small victory on the path to wholeness. Self-love is a radical act because it insists that you are enough exactly as you are, not when you've earned it or fixed yourself, but right now. In the process of cultivating self-love, you begin to untangle yourself from the need for external validation. You learn that your value is not dependent on likes, compliments, or achievements. You start to find fulfillment in your own company and peace in your own heart. This shift transforms how you relate to the world. You become less reactive to criticism and more resilient in the face of challenges. You attract relationships that honor your worth and nurture your soul. Moreover, self-love fuels compassion for others. When you understand and accept your own imperfections, you are less likely to judge those around you harshly. You become a source of empathy and support, offering kindness without conditions. This ripple effect strengthens communities and fosters deeper human connection. Remember, self-love is a journey, not a perfectionist's checklist. There will be days when it feels effortless, and others when it feels impossible. But every time you choose yourself, with patience, forgiveness, and courage, you reclaim your power and step closer to the freedom you deserve. So, make a promise to yourself today to speak kindly to your heart, to protect your peace, and to love yourself fiercely. Because self-love is not just a gift you give to yourself. It is the foundation for a life lived fully and authentically. And in that love, you will find a strength that no demon can argue with. Hope is not a distant dream reserved for the lucky few. It is a seed planted deep within each of us, waiting to be nurtured, even in the darkest of times. It is not a fragile wish, but a resilient force that carries us through storms when everything else seems lost. Hope does not deny pain or pretend that hardship does not exist. Instead, it acknowledges the struggle and chooses to believe that beyond the struggle lies possibility. Possibility for healing, for joy, for transformation. Many of us have faced moments where hope felt impossible. When life's weight pressed down so heavily, the future seemed like a shadowless void. In those moments, hope is not a loud cheer but a quiet whisper, a breath, a small flicker refusing to be extinguished. It is the courage to say, "This is not the end." It is the strength to keep moving forward, even when the path is unclear and the night feels endless. Hope grows when we allow ourselves to dream again. When we give permission to imagine a life beyond pain, beyond fear, beyond the chains of self-doubt. It is a radical act to hope when you have been hurt, to trust when you have been betrayed, to love when you have been broken. Yet, this is exactly what hope asks of us. Not blind optimism, but a steadfast faith that life can and will change. To cultivate hope, we must learn to see beyond the immediate hardships and recognize the seeds of growth hidden within them. Every challenge, every setback, every moment of despair carries with it a lesson, a chance to rise stronger and wiser. When you shift your perspective, pain transforms from a prison into a teacher, and hope becomes the light guiding you through the darkest corridors. Hope is also deeply connected to community. It thrives in connection, in knowing that you are not alone in your struggle. When you share your story, when you listen to others, you weave a tapestry of resilience that supports and uplifts. Hope multiplies when it is shared. It is not a solitary flame, but a collective fire that warms many hearts. But hope requires action. It is not passive waiting, but active choosing. Choosing to believe in possibility means choosing to take steps forward, even if they are small and uncertain. It means nurturing your dreams with patience and perseverance, watering them with faith and courage. It means refusing to let fear dictate your future. When hope is alive within you, it changes how you see yourself and the world. You begin to believe that you deserve happiness, that healing is possible, that your story is not defined by your darkest chapters, but by your courage to keep writing. Hope gives you the strength to forgive, not to forget, but to free yourself from the burden of bitterness. It gives you the grace to embrace imperfections and the wisdom to understand that setbacks are part of growth. In moments when hope feels distant, remember that it is never truly gone. It is always there, beneath the surface, waiting for you to reach out and grasp it. Sometimes, hope comes disguised as a kind word from a stranger, a quiet moment of gratitude, or a sunrise after a long night. Other times, it is found in the simple act of breathing, reminding yourself that you are still here, still capable of change. Hope is not just a feeling, it is a choice you make every day, a choice to believe in the possibility of better days, to trust in your own strength, to hold space for your dreams. It is the light that no darkness can fully extinguish. It is the voice that says, you are not alone, you are not broken beyond repair, you are enough. So nurture your hope, protect it fiercely, feed it with faith, courage, and love. Let it grow until it becomes a beacon, guiding you through the storm and lighting the way toward a future filled with possibility and peace. Because hope is not just what keeps us going, it is what makes life worth living. Healing is not a straight line, nor is it a destination you arrive at and never leave behind. It is a journey, a winding, unpredictable path that asks for patience, courage, and above all, compassion for yourself. Healing does not mean forgetting what hurt you or pretending the pain never existed. It means learning to live with your scars, to hold your wounds gently while still moving forward. It is the quiet strength of choosing to rise each day, even when your heart feels heavy. Often we imagine healing as a magical moment of sudden transformation, like a switch flipping and all the pain vanishing. But real healing is slower, more subtle. It is found in the small, everyday acts. A deep breath when anxiety tries to overwhelm you. A kind word you say to yourself after a moment of doubt. The decision to reach out for help when the weight feels too much to bear alone. Healing is not about perfection, it is about persistence. When we are hurting, the impulse can be to rush the process, to fix, to erase, to move on as quickly as possible. But healing requires time, it requires space. It requires allowing yourself to feel whatever emotions come up without judgment. Anger, sadness, fear, grief. These feelings are not enemies to be conquered, but messengers to be heard. When you honor your emotions, you give yourself permission to process the pain rather than bury it. Healing is also deeply personal. No two journeys look the same. What works for one person may not work for another, and that is okay. You are allowed to find your own way, to seek out what nourishes your soul, and to set boundaries around what does not serve your well-being. Healing means trusting your intuition and giving yourself grace when the path feels unclear. An important part of healing is forgiveness, not for those who hurt you, but for yourself. We often carry guilt, shame, or blame that weighs us down far more than the original pain. Forgiving yourself is a radical act of love. It means recognizing your humanity and accepting that you did the best you could with the tools you had at the time. It does not mean excusing harm or forgetting lessons learned. It means freeing yourself from the prison of self-condemnation. Healing also invites us to embrace vulnerability. It asks us to show up fully, even when it's uncomfortable or scary. To share our stories, to ask for support, and to connect with others who understand our struggle. In vulnerability, we find strength, and in connection, we find hope. No one heals alone. We heal together through empathy, kindness, and shared humanity. As you heal, you may find parts of yourself awakening, dreams once buried, passions once silenced, a sense of purpose rekindled. Healing does not just mend what was broken, it transforms, it shapes you into someone wiser, more compassionate, and more resilient. Your scars become symbols of survival, proof of your strength. Remember that healing is not linear. There will be days when you feel like you've taken 2 steps forward and 1 step back. That is part of the process. Be gentle with yourself during setbacks. Celebrate progress, no matter how small. Healing is not about becoming someone new. It is about becoming more fully yourself. Ultimately, healing is a declaration. You will not let your pain define you. You will rise from the ashes of your suffering with grace. You will live not despite your wounds, but because of the strength they revealed within you. Healing is not an event. It is a lifelong commitment to love yourself fiercely and to choose life every single day. Healing is not a destination we reach, but a journey we commit to every day. It is the courageous choice to embrace our pain, to honor our scars, and to keep moving forward with compassion for ourselves. When we choose healing, we choose life with all its imperfections, all its challenges, and all its beauty. So stand tall in your truth, carry your light with pride, and remember, your past does not define you. Your strength to heal does. Keep walking your path with grace, because your story is far from over, and the best chapters are yet to come.